Welcome to the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for being with us on this Monday. I hope you're having a wonderful Monday so far. It's been a little over 3 years since ChatGPT was released to the public, and in that time, the concept of artificial intelligence, or AI, has taken the world by storm. AI has been developed and used for decades, but it's really only been in the past few years that generative AI programs like ChatGPT have exposed the broader public to these technologies. This week at IdeaStream Public Media, we're sharing a week-long reporting project across all of our platforms. The project as a whole is called IdeaStream Explores Artificial Intelligence, and we're looking at how pervasive AI is. For example, how it's showing up in and affecting education, the workforce, the environment, art, and more. To start the show today, we'll hear a preview of what you can expect to be shared this week, and then we'll look at how AI is shaping the future workforce, like whether it's making a difference in what kids are saying they want to be when they grow up. And we'll wrap things up by hearing about the kind of career training students are getting in college, now that AI is common concept in everyday life. First, with me in studio to help introduce IdeaStream Explores Artificial Intelligence, we have Justin Glanville, our Deputy Editor of Engaged Journalism. Justin, thanks for coming in with us today.
Hey, Stephanie. Good to be here.
We appreciate it. Now, if you want to be a part of the conversation, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903, or you can send us an email at soi@ideastream.org. You can also send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. All right, Justin, let's sort of set the table here. Can you give us the backstory on why IdeaStream is focusing on artificial intelligence this week?
Well, let me back up and say, we used to do these types of projects, Stephanie, where we would focus on one topic at a time relatively frequently, about 6 or 7 years ago. Folks who are listening might remember that we did a series called Divided by Design that I think was one of the highlights of our past efforts in this type of storytelling, where we looked at exactly how the region became so segregated. And so we really wanted to get back to that idea of focusing on a single topic, really corralling our whole newsroom and all the reporters in our newsroom to focus on that one single thing, with the idea being that we could all work together and collaborate more than we usually do in the newsroom, right, where we're all kind of working on multiple things at the same time, but also really prompt our audiences and inspire our audiences to think about this topic deeply, something that's very timely, something that's really affecting our lives in this region. And so as we started to brainstorm about, well, what should that be? What should that topic be? We had a few different forerunners emerge, and artificial intelligence was one of them. And I have to tell you, and I wrote about this last week in our Cut column that we do, I was a little bit, I don't know, I was not thrilled when AI emerged as our top topic, because what we did was, after the editors came up with some ideas, we ran them in front of the whole newsroom and asked, hey, what do you guys want to do? And AI was far and away the front runner. And I was reflecting on why that was. And I think it's because it's gotten so much attention over the last few years, especially when ChatGPT, as you said, first became popular. And also, I think I've been burying my head in the sand a little bit about it, because it is a little bit scary. And especially in our field, it really does affect the work we do. But I decided I needed to buy in and really get behind it. And I'm so glad I did, because I've learned a ton about it and I feel like less afraid. So all this week, as you said, we're going to be hearing the fruits of the reporter's labor. I'm so excited.
To that point of what you were saying about buying in and not burying your head in the sand. So you've had eyes and ears on all of the pieces that will be shared, many of the pieces that will be shared, most if not all of them, over the coming week. So how has your understanding of AI changed while heading up this project?
So I think I have a pretty simplistic definition in my own mind. I know there are much more technical and scientific definitions that people use, but for me, it's the way I think about it is anything where computers are helping us do some of the thinking. And one of the themes, Stephanie, that's emerged from the stories that I've gotten to see from our reporters so far is that almost everybody says that's really the key term, is helping, that AI is helping us do the thinking. It's not doing the thinking for us, at least not yet. It's helping us do the thinking. And that really manifests in a few ways. I think because of the field that you and I are in and that all the reporters are in of journalism and storytelling, the type of AI that I had tended to think about most when we were starting this project out were those kind of generative AI tools like ChatGPT, like what you see on Google when you do a search and you see that summary at the top of the screen. And, where AI is helping generate either text or photos or video or audio, and putting out some sort of, I guess, creative, for lack of a better term, topic. But there are other types of AI too that we'll learn about over the course of this week. There's something called machine learning, where machines are doing some of the work for us. For example, Matt Richmond later this week will have a story about how facial recognition technology is being used by local law enforcement to find crime suspects. So, it really, there's really all kinds of different AI out there and ways that it's being used. And we're going to be hearing about all of them. Some other examples of stories we're going to hear this week that are more about that generative kind of AI that I mentioned is we're going to hear about a wedding planning business, a local one that uses AI to help people plan their weddings. I know maybe you would have used it. I don't know.
Maybe. I wonder if it would have been less expensive.
Exactly, right. Or there's also something from Jay Nungesser that's coming up about how sports teams locally, professional ones and also collegiate ones, are using AI to help them come up with plays, like new plays that they can do on their teams. So, we're really covering the gamut of what can happen with AI.
Speaking of that wide gamut, how did reporters and producers decide individually on what to focus on for this series?
We really made it an open playing field. People could pitch whatever stories they want. I will say that a lot of people chose to pitch stories in the beats that they ordinarily do. For example, Zaria Johnson tomorrow will have a story about data centers and how they are the environmental impacts of data centers, which of course are a huge engine of AI, are really affecting things environmentally, and how are we dealing with that in terms of energy use and water use. I mentioned Matt Richmond's story about facial recognition, but then we also invited reporters to just think about things they were curious about and do stories about that. So it's really kind of a mix. And I have to say, Stephanie, that I was concerned. I was like, well, are we going to have a well-balanced look at AI if we just let people do whatever they want? But it turned out, I think we did. We really have very few gaps that we needed to proactively fill. I think all the topics are well covered. And of course, you guys are going to be doing all kinds of segments this week too on AI.
We will, which I'm very excited to get into. Now, where can people catch the stories that will be shared this week, Justin? There are lots of platforms and places for it.
Yep. So Morning Edition and All Things Considered, almost every day this week, we're going to have 3 radio features on Morning Edition and All Things Considered, because the Ohio Newsroom, with their Today from the Ohio Newsroom, is also going to be contributing. I mentioned that there'll be segments on this show, and then also Applause. This week's Applause, which is our TV show on WVIZ highlighting arts and culture, airs Friday at 8 p.m., or maybe it's 8:30. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. Will be all about AI. For example, we have a story on that show this week about how local writers are discovering that their writings are being used to generate AI text, a little bit disturbing. Dave DiOrio will be doing a story about the Cleveland Institute of Art and how students and professors there are using AI. And I guess one thing he shared with me is that students are much more wary of using AI than professors are, which I thought was interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
That is interesting. And you did get yourself correct there, Justin. I just want to let our audience know Applause is at 8:30 on Friday.
You.
So
Thank you, yeah.
Appreciate you sharing that with us. Now, Justin, I'm going to ask you to put your headphones on for a moment because we are going to play a sample of some of the reporting that you're going to be privy to this week. This is a bit from our Cleveland reporter, Abby Marshall, and a story she produced about how the city of Cleveland is using AI to evaluate their housing stock.
Cleveland's Director of Urban Analytics and Innovation, Elizabeth Crow, acknowledges that it may sound creepy to some that a car is driving around taking pictures of your house, but she equates it to a Google Earth vehicle capturing Street View images. And she says the software will automatically blur faces and license plates before sending the images to City Hall.
City officials will not see license plates or faces. They will just see the condition of properties and physical infrastructure.
That was just a bit of the reporting that we will hear from Abby Marshall coming up this week. There's also a couple of live events tied to this series, Justin. One at the Akron Press Club. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that one is a week from Wednesday, Stephanie. So that one's going to be focusing specifically on artificial intelligence and how it's being used in journalism. And our deputy editor of news, one of our deputy editors of news, Andrew Meyer, will be the moderator for that one. So that's going to be a really interesting, I'm sure, a little bit disturbing and worrisome, but also very interesting exploration of how AI is affecting us in our industry. And while I'm talking about that, actually, just today, we're really diving into that too in our features this week. Amy Eddings has a story that's airing today about the overall impacts of AI in journalism. Josh Boos has a story tomorrow told in the first person about how AI is affecting his work every day. So that one is a week from Wednesday at noon. People can register for that online. You can go on our website to find more information about that. And then we have the Sound of Ideas community tour, which I'm sure you're about to get to.
Well, yes, and I want you to share more information about that. I'm very excited about this. This will be my first community tour, and it happens to be part of this week-long reporting project. So that's happening Tuesday, February 17th, right here at the Idea Center at 6 p.m. Free to attend. We do need you to register, though. You can register at ideastream.org/community tour, also ideastream.org/SOI, whatever's more convenient for you, whatever is your pleasure per URL. But tell us a little bit about more what we can expect there, Justin.
First of all, this is your first community tour?
It
I didn't
is.
realize that.
Yes.
Exciting. They're always really fun. It's so fun to be in front of a live audience. Yes, we're going to have 3 panelists for that one. There's going to be people from Case Western Reserve University, from St. Edward's High School in Lakewood, and from the Cleveland Institute of Art, which I just mentioned. So they'll be talking about AI and how it's being used at their institutions. I'll also be there to kind of kick things off and talk about some of the lessons learned. And then Richard Cunningham, who's our engagement producer, will be there to talk to audience members informally before and afterward, and also do some surveying at the end of the event, because we really do think of this IdeaStream Explorers as an example of our engaged journalism efforts, which means we want to do journalism with the public. And so this time, one of the things that makes this IdeaStream Explorers this week different from when we've done this type of thing in the past is that we really want audiences and the public to help us synthesize all that we heard and what landed with you? What did you take away from this? What do you want us to explore more in future stories? What should we be doing as a region to better prepare ourselves for the future? So we're really trying to be intentional about that and hoping that the community tour can be kind of our first steps toward determining some of those things.
Very much looking forward to it. There are some seats still available. So again, check that out, ideastream.org/SOI or ideastream.org/community tour. All right, Justin, thank you very much for helping us kick off IdeaStream Explorers Artificial Intelligence, our deputy editor for Engaged Journalism. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to take a little break now. And when we come back, we'll ask parents and teachers how they talk to young kids with big career dreams about the future of AI and the workforce, and what those kids want to be when they grow up. This is The Sound of Ideas. I'm Stephanie Haney. We'll be right back. You're with The Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for staying with us. What do you want to be when you grow up? It's a question kids have been asked for generations. When I was a little girl, I went through lots of different phases where I wanted to be lots of different things when I grew up. One of my grandmas had heart disease, so for a while, I really wanted to be a cardiologist. It never occurred to me back then, and didn't occur to me until very recently, that that career might not exist as an option one day. Today, though, in 2026, I'm starting to wonder, will artificial intelligence change the options for today's young kids, who will be grown-ups looking for jobs over the next several decades? To try to answer that question, we're talking now with parents and teachers about how they advise children who are just starting to think about what they do want to do with their lives. So joining me now in studio, we have Brett Stanek, technology specialist at Euclid Schools, who's also a father of two. Brett, thanks for being with us.
Hi, thanks, Stephanie.
On the phone, we have Lindy Lurie, who's a social worker at Judson Park, a senior living community, and also a mother of three. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks for having me.
Now, if you want to be a part of this conversation, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org and send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Brett, I'd like to start with you as an educator and a tech specialist. What do you see unfolding in terms of AI and its effect on career fields?
You know, it's interesting. The AI boom here is just getting started. And in education, we're just getting our feet wet, so to speak. So we're now introducing tools. We are coming up with policy. We're involving stakeholders within the district, parents, teachers, administrators, local businesses, trying to come up with a good game plan as to how we want to proceed in the near future with this, because it is uncharted territory. Education is changing. It's always changing. There's always going to be new tools coming out. And, it's kind of like when calculators came out on the market. Everybody was in a panic about it. And, how are kids going to learn math? They're just going to use calculators. But we know that not to be true. We still teach math. Kids still have to have a basic foundation. And then it was the internet. When the internet was really prevalent back in the 90s, it was a panic again. Are students going to learn, or are they just going to search the internet and get all the answers and they're never going to get anything? We know that to not be true either. So I look at AI in that realm as well. It's going to be a tool for us to use with the students and help them learn how to use it so that they can become, productive future members of society.
To bring the conversation into the real world a bit more, a little less theoretical, what can you tell us about AI being used by educators and students in Euclid schools specifically?
So, like I said, we're just getting our feet wet now. We have teachers that are piloting a few educational AI tools for us. They are reporting back to me to let me know, what's working, what's not working, pros and cons kinds of things. But we are, like I said, just in those initial stages. So we're just getting our feet wet.
In these initial stages, are you seeing any effects at this point, positive or negative, of the developing AI tech on what kids are talking about in terms of their future careers?
It's more the same. All kids want to be professional athletes. All kids want to be movie stars. I mean, don't we all? But, the reality is that we have always encouraged students to come up with multiple ideas, multiple game plans. Never bringing down their ideas, but, always encouraging, have a backup plan. Make sure that you have other ideas, other things that you're passionate about, and using those to help develop your future.
I want to remind our audience we are talking about artificial intelligence and its uses in education and the kind of impact it might have on future careers as young people think about what it is they want to be when they grow up. If you want to be part of this conversation, the number to call is 866-578-0903. You can also send us an email at soi@ideastream.org. We welcome any questions or comments. Lindy, let's bring you into the conversation now. You have three children. Your kids are aged 4, 8, and 12. Some people in this age group, that's quite the wide range of age, I know, but some people in this age group, sometimes you're hearing a focus of parents trying to get their kids to hone in on what they might want to do, maybe focusing on something that might be high paying or in high demand. Are you thinking about that at all? And if so, does AI come up for you in those conversations?
Sure, we think about it all the time, especially with our 12-year-old, who has been very clear with me she wants to be an artist when she grows up. So, in talking to her about that and recognizing that that might not be a good paying profession, we've kind of encouraged her to look at the trades to get a job in the future, maybe not go to college the traditional route. In construction, carpentry, plumbing, mechanics, things like that, that hopefully won't be taken over in AI by the time she gets to her stage of working. But one never knows.
Does it kind of sounds to me, Lindy, like you're focusing on things that are more analog, more things that you do with your hands, that it seems that it does require a finesse to do. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Do you feel a pressure at all, Lindy, to understand about AI so that you can inform those conversations with your kids?
Yeah, I think a lot of the enforcement I get about AI is through my own work, where I do have a lot of pop-ups on Google asking me about ChatGPT and what I kind of want to write in my emails to other people. But I think, I don't want anyone's job to be taken away by AI, which is not a fair assessment at all.
What about you, Brett? Do you feel a pressure to sort of keep up with what's happening with AI as working in an educational space?
Yeah, absolutely. We always want to prepare our students for the future, and AI is definitely going to be a part of it. So we definitely need to incorporate these tools, into their education.
We did get an email in from Dan. Dan, thanks for emailing in. Dan writes, is it really true that the internet has not in effect affected the intelligence of younger generations? This person says that they just saw a report where Gen Z posted declining IQs among other findings. Brett, is that something that you've been seeing in the education space?
It's hard for me to comment on. I don't know if I've seen IQ drop per se. I haven't seen stats or figures or anything, but I can just say that the nature of education looks very different. If you went to school in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it looks very different now in a school building as opposed to what it did back then. We're using technology all day, every day. Most schools are one-to-one now with Chromebook devices or other computers or laptops. It's just been integrated into our way of life. So when they say that maybe IQ points have dropped, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I will say that it just looks very, very different.
If you're just joining us, we are talking about artificial intelligence and its implementations in classrooms for young people and how it might be impacting what people want to be when they grow up in terms of what jobs might be available, whether those be brand new jobs or what jobs might no longer be available because they're being handled now by artificial intelligence. Lindy, your oldest is 12, as you mentioned. Is Lindy finding hobbies and topics that they might pursue as a career into adulthood? I know you mentioned art. I'm just wondering how big of a piece of the existence that is for a 12-year-old thinking that far down the road.
I think she's thinking about art and other more artsy fields, like kind of teaching. She's thinking about a little. I hear Brett talking about that, and with that, there comes the question of what will be AI and what won't be. So we're a little bit nervous about that.
How do you handle that conversation when that comes up with her? Is that something you're actively talking about with your 12-year-old?
When she looks up from her phone, yes. We try to kind of say, the reason why we're kind of encouraging you to go into the trades is because there's like a little bit of finesse and hands-on work that we feel won't be taken over by AI in 10 years when she's looking for a job. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. But we talk about that, and that's the encouragement to go into the trades, because those do need hands, those do need a brain, you do need different types of skills to have those jobs. So she knows that that's why we're encouraging her to do that.
Life does certainly come at you fast, when you're thinking about it. One day you're 12, 10 years in a blink of an eye, you're graduating college or graduating a trade school or what have you, and thinking about what you're going to do for a paycheck. We'd like to invite our audience, if you have something to add to the conversation, maybe you can share with us how you talk about AI and future job options with your kids. The number is 866-578-0903, and the email is soi@ideastream.org. Brett, What is the school telling students who expressed interest in careers that either maybe aren't in high demand or don't pay comparatively well, or that you maybe have already seen AI sort of taking over a bit, for lack of a better phrase?
So, programming and coding is a huge field that a lot of students are interested in, and we are encouraging our students to, investigate that field. I have a brother and sister-in-law that work with programming, and they write a lot of code, and they've seen AI creep into their workplace. They said that it's extremely useful and beneficial for them. Which is something I would also relate to the students. It's a tool again that they need to learn how to use appropriately in the context of whatever job that they choose. But it's something that is just a tool. It's not an end-all, be-all. Yes, it can create. Yes, it can help you develop ideas and things like that. But there still needs to be a human element behind it. And I would tell that to all students, that there still is a human element, even if we are using AI tools for everything. There still needs to be a human behind it to double check it, to verify it, to go through it, and make sure that it's, what we need.
I'm trying to think back now. It's been a long time since I was in middle school and junior high school and high school. And thinking about some of the things Lindy's been saying here about shifting her attention away from maybe higher education in terms of college, but maybe looking at trade schools. Is that a major focus of education for young people now, K through 12, in your experience? Is it really all about career readiness? How big of a piece of the puzzle is that?
It is a huge piece. It's a shift. When we were kids, it was told us, oh, you have to go to college. You got to go to college, you get a great job to get, a lot of money to support your family. That's just not the way it is anymore. We are not discouraging, obviously, students attending college, but we're also encouraging them to look into those trades, to follow their passions. If they are somebody that is hands-on, we absolutely want them doing our welding program, or we want them in our nursing program. There's a lot of options out there for students, and it's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing anymore. It's follow your passion, and we're going to help you do that.
Lindy, what about you at home? How do you balance trying to give advice to your kids about what their future might look like and what they need to do to prepare for supporting themselves and bringing a paycheck home versus encouraging them to follow their dreams?
That's a really hard question because in my maternal family, I have two sisters who are dentists, and my mother's a dentist. So that's a more hands-on job that is hopefully isn't going to be AI focused. I chose to be a social worker. My husband is a communications professional, kind of by accident at the children's school. So talking to them about their hopes and dreams rather than getting a paycheck, we kind of focus on both. So we want to make sure that they're happy in what they do, but also receive a paycheck. And I think AI kind of complicates that in a little way because all jobs are going to be using AI in the next X amount of years. So we're a little bit concerned.
As we wrap things up here, Brett, I'd like to ask you what advice you would give to parents who are trying to find the right way to talk with their kids about artificial intelligence and the future.
So, I would recommend that they label it what it is. It is a tool, and one that needs to be used appropriately, carefully, just like the internet. There's dangers associated with being on the internet and communicating with strangers, things like that. It's the same thing with AI. There are dangers and pitfalls, but it can be an amazing tool that they can use to help them in their future. It's something that they're going to need to know. It's not something that you can kind of push to the side and just ignore it because it is going to infiltrate everything. Just looking at the Super Bowl last night, there was tons of ads about AI. I think I saw a statistic that like 25% of the ads that were AI related or incorporated AI tools and images. That's only going to get more prevalent. So it's something that we need to address with our kids and our students, and to let them know that it's a tool that we need to use appropriately.
That's all the time we have for this part of the conversation. Brett Stanek with Euclid Schools and father of two, thanks for being here with us.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Stephanie.
And Lindy Loury, social worker and mother of three, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
We'd also like to thank multimedia producer Igal Kaufman for producing this segment as part of the IdeaStream Explores Artificial Intelligence series. We'll take another quick break now, and on the other side, we'll hear how professors are reassessing the use of AI in the college classroom in order to help young adults get ready for the job market. This is The Sound of Ideas. I'm Stephanie Haney. We'll be right back. Welcome to The Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for staying with us on your Monday. Before the break, we heard about whether the expansion of artificial intelligence is influencing what younger people want to be when they grow up. As AI use has grown, colleges and universities have had to reevaluate their approach to teaching when it comes to that technology, especially if students are focusing on disciplines like computer science, which is a field that's evolving just as quickly as AI is. Now we'll hear straight from the sources about how educators are rethinking their college courses and what students hope to do as they graduate and move into a quickly changing job market. With me now in studio, we have Michael Goldberg, the Executive Director of the Veal Institute for Entrepreneurship and Professor of the Weatherhead School of Management at Case Western Reserve University. Michael, thanks for being here today.
It's great to be here.
We also have with us Alvisa Krasniqi, a junior at Case Western Reserve University, concentrating on computer science and economics, and a student of Michael's. Alvisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it very much. If you would like to be a part of the conversation, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org or send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Michael, let's talk about your courses first. You're teaching entrepreneurship and everything that might go along with starting a business, and you also have a lot of experience in the tech sector. So how do those concepts come together for you in the classes that you're teaching?
So it's a real privilege to be teaching at Case Western Reserve. As you mentioned, I sort of had a background in working in tech and in venture capital, and now I've been at Case for a little over 10 years in the classroom. So what I've tried to do over the years, certainly before a lot of the disruption as it relates to AI, is have guest speakers come in. I mean, my goal is really giving our students as close of a touch to what they might sort of see in the outside world, and bringing in practitioners that are out doing deals and starting companies to be engaged with our students, so that our students, as they think about what might be next, whether it's starting a company or sort of going to work in tech, that they get that taste of what's out there.
A lot going on there. And yes, you do definitely have an extensive background in the technology industry, IMG, among many other several places that you worked. So I want to ask you, when you start to see AI and generative AI, which I would love for you to define for us, by the way, generative AI, really start impacting your teaching, when did you see that and how did you see the students reacting?
So it's been interesting. I mean, I think the, ChatGPT kind of at first, and now whether it's Anthropic, Google, many different platforms. I mean, our students and my own kids, I have kids that are college age, we're sort of leaning in. And I think that iterative nature, when we talk about generative AI, to me, what is sort of amazing to see is the ability to really use it as a tutor and beginning to have conversations. It's not just simply, as we used to sort of Google or use search engine for answers. Now it's really a tool in which people are sort of going back and forth. I think for the challenge for us on the assessment side, and as we sort of thought about classes, is it began to be very difficult to understand as students were turning in particularly written assignments, what might be on their own and what might they have washed through a few different generative AI engines. So I'd say this semester in particular, I really took a pause and was like, what should I be doing differently? Some of my colleagues are back to Blue Books and writing in the classes. There's a whole bunch of different approaches, whether it's, I know we obviously had the segment before talking about what's happening in K through 12 education, same thing in higher ed. We want to make sure that our students like Alvisa are ready for the workforce out there. So this is a moment where we're like, what should we be doing to teach? How should we assess? And it's a challenge.
For anyone listening who might not remember what a blue book is, maybe you didn't have that experience, that literally was a little blue pamphlet, and you had to write out your essay answer in it. So you were not connected to the internet, you weren't using technology, you had a pencil or a pen, whatever your teacher preferred, and that's how you turned in your exam. So throwback for me, thinking about those blue book essays. Now, Alvisa, you were born and raised in Kosovo and spent some time in Germany before enrolling at Case. Tell us about when and how you got interested in computer science.
Yeah, so growing up in Kosovo, there's a lot of emphasis on technology. So I was introduced to coding early on, and I also just started to like develop my passion for building innovative solutions to like complex problems, and I got into coding there. Afterwards, I moved to Germany, and where I went to boarding school, and I essentially started to learn more about how technology is rapidly evolving and how it could also just change and transform people's lives. And I thought that I really wanted to be part of this generation that is building these amazing products that are impacting a lot of people.
So, with those diverse experiences in your background, what was it that attracted you to Case Western Reserve University?
I think Case Western Reserve University is a great university that really allows you to combine different majors and different interests that you have. So for me, I'm doing computer science and economics, and for a lot of people, that might seem like two diverse fields. However, at Case, I feel like it's really easy to just to integrate different things at once, essentially. So I think Case does a great job at just helping you be a very well-rounded person.
Now, you're a junior in college now.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about how quickly the major of computer science has changed in the last 2.5 years since you enrolled?
Yeah, I think it's rapidly changing. I remember when I first started college, ChatGPT had just came out, and I think some of my professors started to get a little worried, and obviously they wanted us to still continue writing our own code because they want us to learn like the fundamentals of algorithms and data structures. We see now that it's like they're a little bit more lenient. Like they understand that AI is a tool that we should learn how to use properly, and they allow us to debug code, for example, using AI. However, there's still some classes that, for example, make us write code using pen and paper because they just want us to get the fundamental right.
Writing code using pen and paper. That's interesting. That's something I hadn't considered. Now, you mentioned you're also studying economics. Why did you decide to combine economics with your computer science studies?
So I wanted to combine computer science and economics because I think these are two powerful lenses that basically technology and the economy shape the world. And as I mentioned before, growing up in Kosovo, I was introduced to coding early on, and then I wanted to add my economics degree just because I feel like that gives me a deeper understanding of market dynamics and just understanding how sustainable development works. And I guess the combination of the two just prepares me to better develop products, tech products that actually solve solutions, like solve problems, and at the same time drive economic growth and development. And hopefully they prepare me or make me a more well-rounded person for the future, and especially in the age of AI.
Is that something that you're seeing, Michael, among many students, is being interested in computer science and coding and programming, but also wanting to add a secondary field of expertise?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, obviously, I know we're talking about the route down here. We have a lot of students that come from computer science or engineering. I mean, we attract a lot of those hardcore engineering, pre-med types. And they wander over to the business school oftentimes because they have an interest in how these ideas might sort of have an application in the market. So some of the things that Elvisa sort of shared and her interest in combining economics and computer science, it's really fun working with students that are sort of having a view. Obviously, on the topic of what they may do when they leave the university, that is changing and evolving. And I think as much of a well-rounded education as we can give them and prepare them for a whole variety of things is really important. So it's fun to be working with students like Elvisa.
We have an email now in from Marvin. Marvin writes, we need to think of AI, the AI tool, as two separate things, the software that does the work and the data it's trained on in order to be able to do the work. The tool that's been made available to us works on stolen data. Money is also a tool to transfer value, but would you use funds you were given if they were counterfeit? Marvin, thank you for bringing up the question and sharing that with us here on The Sound of Ideas. Michael, I'll ask you, Marvin seems to be getting at something that a lot of people are concerned about with artificial intelligence in terms of the materials that it's trained on. What do you think about that?
No, thank you, Marvin. It's a great question, and we could devote a lot of time talking about that, even whether it's news and information at places like IdeaStream or other news outlets and how it gets fed, we are concerned even as we use these tools sort of in the classroom and what we put in there and how they may be used. I think the reality is as these models are getting smarter and smarter and sort of training on data, certainly I'm seeing, and I think, and obviously could probably speak to it, using multiple different engines that are training on different data, I think is really important. We know that in the last segment, they talked about some of the errors that could happen. So the tool is there. There's going to be deals that are done, whether it's with large media organizations or sort of others around that data. But yeah, we're very cognizant about how we use it, what goes into it. But I think the reality for us and our students are, it's a tool that's out there, and I'm certainly encouraging students to sort of lean in to it, albeit a lot of challenges ahead.
Definitely a lot of uncertainties as we are exploring it. Otherwise, there'd be no reason for us to explore artificial intelligence all week with our Ideas Stream Explorer series. Now, Michael, I asked Alvisa a bit ago about the last few years in college, the last 2.5 years since she enrolled, after the emergence of ChatGPT and things like that. How about you as a professor? How have you had to adapt and change the way you work, maybe your syllabus and other things?
Yeah, I think in some ways this semester in Alvisa's in my entrepreneurial finance class, I felt like for that class, I really had to sort of pause and rethink how I had been assessing, grading, and giving assignments. It's gotten to a point, it's so challenging. I mean, I'm a deep believer in the importance of teaching people how to write. I mean, probably all three of us got trained in that, so I'm not going away from it. But for the class that Alvisa's in, we have changed the way that we're doing assignments. So students have to come to class with a presentation prepared. And I encourage them to lean into AI to prepare their presentation, both in the information behind it, and also it's gotten really good at helping people prepare really pretty presentations. What I do in classes, and we have no computers and no phones, is they have to be ready to talk about it. So I think the art of presentation is really, really important. It doesn't really matter what. You could be a physician, you could be a lawyer, you could be working, at a tech company. Like, you have to be able to present your ideas. So, we're cold calling on students. We put up their presentations, and I've done it to Alvisa in class a couple times. And I'm saying, hey, explain this. So, and the final exam this year, which used to be a take-home exam, is going to be a meeting with me and my colleagues where people have to have a conversation about where they're going to be looking at a potential investment. So I really have sort of pulled back. I think it's gotten super challenging on the assessment side, given the power of AI. So I'm trying to think differently about it, trying to be fair. Not everybody can get an A in every class, although students love getting A's. So I think this is the moment that, at least for me in this class, like I had to just stop doing things the way I was doing them. And so far, actually, the results have been good. I think the class succession is good. It's somewhat ironic in that, like, we're talking about tech, and we're talking these things like no laptops, no phones. Mm-hmm. Students, like it or not, have to be engaged. I think a lot of our high school and K through 12 colleagues are probably ahead of higher ed. I think some of my university, I mean, I don't know what, for your fellow professors, sometimes people are like, hey, you're paying for it. If you don't want to pay attention, you can be on your computer. But I feel like sort of enforcing that. So I think it's been an interesting start. We'll sort of see. I mean, all of us are doing it a bit differently, but a couple weeks in, I think it's going pretty well.
Have there been any gotcha moments so far where it became apparent that maybe a student had relied really heavily on AI and maybe didn't have the knowledge to back it up?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think going into over the last year, you're starting to see, particularly on the written assignment side, just this disconnect between a student that when you have a conversation with them don't really seem to be getting the concepts, and then what they're turning in is so strong. So I think part of that motivated me to say, okay, I need to have these, because you see it when you talk to people. And I think it's actually working pretty well this semester in class, because I'm putting them on the spot, and I think they're coming prepared to have a conversation. And I think that's not the only piece of what we need to do as educators. Writing is still critically important, but I think being able to take all this information, run it through your brain, and then have a conversation.
Have it come out your mouth.
No doubt. So I think it's going pretty well, but it's still a challenge.
Well, Alvisa, what do you think? How's it going? Talk to us about that presentation model in the class.
Yeah, I can attest to it. I think it's going really well. I think preparing before going to class and just doing our research and putting it on slides has been really helpful. And obviously, we need to prepare a little bit about like what we're going to say if we get picked on in class. And I've luckily been like picked on like 3 times already, which is amazing.
Who's counting?
But I think it's really nice, and I don't think this is. It's good because it's teaching us how to actually develop communication skills and how to present in class. And I think it's important that we still continue to develop like critical thinking skills. And I think it's also important to like note that not everything, like we don't need to use AI to prepare the slides necessarily. Like Professor Goldberg is okay with us using them, but there's sometimes simpler solutions to these problems, and not everything needs AI.
As we kind of start to wrap things up here, Michael, I want to ask you about the fields that you think might be most impacted here. Are there certain fields that you're excited about the future of for students, and certain fields that you're thinking, that I don't know if that's going to be around much longer?
But I think the reality is, and Alvis is a great example because she's engaging in what has become a very challenging internship and hiring market for CS majors, is to be able to have conversations with employers, regardless if it's Google, if it's Sherwin-Williams, if it's KeyBank, about how you're leaning in and using all these tools, including AI. So I think one of our goals is giving them the experience, and when we think about career readiness, because things are sort of changing so rapidly, whether it's traditional manufacturers here in Northeast Ohio or tech companies on the coast. So I think our goal, at least what I'm thinking about in the classroom, is just giving them experiences that they can sort of go out to the market to talk about. And one of the questions that's coming up for many employers is, how have you been using AI yourself, whether it's sort of in the classroom, because I think there's a curiosity in how those skills might apply to the workforce. So, it's the reality of the career search right now.
Alvisa, final question for you. How do your peers feel about AI? Are they embracing it? Are they nervous about it? Is it just a neutral thing that just exists to them? What's that like?
I think it's different for a lot of my peers. So for a lot of my computer science peers, they're using it to help them develop code at a much faster rate. So they're debugging code using AI. And then if you look at my economics peers, then they're using AI to do a lot of research and maybe to help them develop like their ideas more clearly. So I think there's, at least at Case Western, I think a lot of people are learning how to use AI, and they're embracing it, and they understand that it's a useful tool. But also being, like ethical and responsible whilst using it.
Have you ever been tripped up with AI? I know sometimes I'll do an AI search and something will come back and I'll think that doesn't sound accurate, actually.
Definitely, yeah. You always have to like check the output that AI gives you. I don't think it's accurate all the time, obviously.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for this conversation. I want to thank both of you for being here for this. Michael Goldberg, professor at Case Western Reserve University. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
And Alvisa Krasniqi, a student at Case Western Reserve University, a student of Michael's. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can hear a rebroadcast tonight at 9 on 89.7 WKSU. You can also find every episode of The Sound of Ideas on demand wherever you get your podcasts and the IdeaStream Public Media YouTube page. To get the last word on today's topics, you can email us at soi@ideastream.org. Last Thursday, we talked with IdeaStream sports commentator Terry Pluto about his new book all about the Browns' quarterback struggles. Jerry emailed in, "Given the fact that so many players and coaches do so well once the Browns have fired them, the answer seems pretty simple to me. Fire them, then rehire them a few days later. Everybody wins." Jerry, that is certainly an innovative idea. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Tomorrow on The Sound of Ideas, we'll hear from high school students about how they're using AI personally and in schoolwork based on what they shared with IdeaStream's Anna Huntsman and Sound of Ideas associate producer Aya Cathy. Also, our Jeff St. Clair shares a conversation about the origins of machine learning and how that's influenced how AI can be used today. This is all part of our week-long IdeaStream Explores Artificial Intelligence series, which also includes our community tour show on artificial intelligence happening next Tuesday, February 17th. We hope that you join us there. You can register at ideastream.org/SOI or at ideastream.org/community tour. Now, before we go, we also want to let you know about another community tour that we have coming up pretty quickly after that. It will be on Wednesday, March 4th. That will focus on the future of Burke Lakefront Airport. That's been a hot topic for years, and Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb is making it his priority to try to close it sooner rather than later. The event will be at the Burke Lakefront Airport in the main terminal. It is free and open to the public, and you can RSVP now at ideastream.org/SOI. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for keeping the conversation going. We'll see you back here tomorrow on The Sound of Ideas.